Last week, we encountered three ideas: Ein Sof, Sfiris, and Chochma. If you recall last week's class was the famous controversy of the interplay between Kabbalah and Hakira, mysticism and philosophy, and specifically the idea of Ein Sof versus Chochma, that obviously the Kabbalists understand the concept of Ein Sof. Ein Sof is known b'derech Kabbalah. It's known because it's divinely inspired. It was revealed from heaven. You cannot determine the idea of Ein Sof by studying the world. And philosophy speaks about Chochma because Chochma is the greatest attribute you can see reflected in the creation as we know it, intelligence. And therefore, the Rambam's concept of God is Chochma, the Kabbalistic concept is Ein Sof, and there's a conflict between the two. And of course, the Arizal and even the Ramak, as it says in the Tanya, create harmony between the mystical Ein Sof idea and the philosophical Seichel idea, intelligence idea, by explaining that when Ein Sof goes into Chochma, we agree with the Rambam's concept of Hu Yedeya and Hu Yadu and Hu Amada. This is what we talked about last week. And of course the point is that there's two concepts in the Neshama, and accordingly there's two concepts in godliness. The two concepts in the Neshama would be the infinity of the Neshama, which would be called Neshama L'Neshama, the soul of the soul, or in more typical Chabad language, Chaya and Yechida. And then, of course, you have the neshama itself, the soul itself, which is further divided up into nefesh, ruach, and neshama, which are mislabish, that are revealed and contained within the body because they're limited. And just like in the neshama you have the infinite and the finite, in godliness you have the infinite and the finite. The infinite would be Ein Sof, and the godliness would be Sfiris. Now, another idea which emerged from this conversation is the distinct place of Chochma in this scheme. Chochma is the first of the 10 Sfiris. But although Chochma is the first of the 10 Sfiris, it's really in a class and in a category by itself. It's as if you were to say, Ein Sof is one idea, Sfiris is a second idea, and Chochma is a third idea. So what is it about Chochma that makes it so distinctive, so special, so by itself, not one of the 10 Sfiris and the 10 Koiches HaNefesh, and on the other hand, not a part of the Ein Sof, and not a part of the infinity of the Neshama L'Neshama. What is it about Chochma? So we will now have a conversation about Chochma. That's the plan. We're going to talk about Chochma. What do we know about Chochma? I don't know you. I'm talking to you, but I don't know you. In many cases, I've never met you. Many of you will approach me on the street and greet me very warmly, and I'll look at you like I don't know who you are. Don't take it personally, because you know me and I don't know you, because I've never met you. You know me electronically, but when I'm looking back at you, I'm looking at a camera, not at you. So I cannot know for sure what each of you know and have learned and so on. But certain things I can assume, at least to a great degree. One of those things is that you've learned Chassidus on a rudimentary level. You have some exposure, some knowledge, right? And I don't think it's too much to assume that you are aware of the idea that Chochma is what they call a flash. Barak HaMavrik. Nekudas HaSkola. The creative flash, the creative enlightenment, the creative point. That's Chochma, a flash. But that is a very limited and perhaps simplistic understanding of what Chochma is. It's true, Chochma is a flash, it's an enlightenment that needs to later be developed and analyzed and broken apart and so forth. But in a more comprehensive way, Chochma is the bridge between the conscious and the subconscious. It's the point in the neshama that is at the top of what we know ourselves to be. And as a consequence, it's in immediate proximity, it's immediately near the part of ourselves which we do not know ourselves to be, because it's our subconscious. And it's critical to appreciate that Chochma is also a koyach, it's a tool. Meaning to say that this point in the human psyche, the human soul, called Chochma, which is, so to speak, the bridge between Ein Sof and the conscious person, we can hold in our hand like a tool. We can master it, we can control it. And the fact that we can control our Koyach HaChochma is, as you will see, Mitzvah Hashem, as this class unfolds, quite remarkable. It's really, really very, very special. So let's talk about Chochma. Let's talk about Chochma. What we know about Chochma is this. There is a person. The person is the neshama b'guf, the human being as we experience ourselves, as we experience one another, with his or her, mine and your awareness, what I know, what I'm aware of. And one of the things which is true about human beings, about all physical creations, is that we were designed by our Creator to be chassid, lacking, not having. Or said in other words, we were all created with many, many potentials, none of which are naturally activated, not naturally realized and matured. And it's necessary for us to go through an exercise of going min hakoyach al hapel, to be mimaleh chasaron, to satisfy the lack. For example, you have a mind, you don't have any ideas until you learn them. You have a heart, you have no feelings until you'll develop them. And you have talents, you have no expression to those talents until you use the talents and develop the talents and practically deliver on those talents, whether it's art or it's music and so forth. The nature of the physical creation is that he's chassid, he's lacking. There's a lot of potential, a lot of possibility, but he's lacking. The neshama is not chassid. The soul, the subconscious, the godliness of our inner selves, and correspondingly the godliness on high. So the lashon that's brought in Chassidus from the Kitzvi Harizal is ein keach chasar paya l'mayla. When you're talking about l'mayla, talking about the higher levels of Ein Sof, no potential is unactualized. If something exists potentially, it automatically exists actually. Which means to say, in the realms of Ein Sof, if you have a brain, it's full of knowledge. If you have a heart, it's full of feelings. There's no such thing as koyach b'li payil. If I have a potential to use my mind has already been used and filled with knowledge. If I have a potential to use my heart or my heart and senses have already been used and been filled with passion and with senses and so forth, and so on. This is the difference between the conscious and the subconscious. So my neshama has, I don't have. So when a person is looking to be mamaleh the chasaron, to satisfy the wants and the lacks, the place to look is around himself, and perhaps on some level in himself. If I am missing something and I need to have to go and get it, where do I get it from? I get it from the world around myself. I get it from my own faculties that are capable of bringing things and feelings and ideas to me, and I incorporate it into myself. But there is also a concept of being mimaleh chasaron, satisfying those lacks from the neshama, from the subconscious. I don't know something, and I want information. The first place I'm going to look is to myself, my own techniques of learning, my own systems of analysis and so forth. If I fail myself, I look to the people around me, to the books available. When everything breaks down and I'm not able to gather this information, to get this knowledge from the world, I have no choice but to look into myself, into my neshama. Based on the principle, on the premise, that my neshama is all-knowing, my neshama knows everything, my neshama understands everything. It's a virtual infinity of knowledge, a long, involved conversation, but that's the short of it. I don't know, my soul knows. So I reach out to my neshama. I reach out to my neshama to get my neshama to beseech my soul to bring forth from the subconscious to the consciousness an idea, an answer to a question, a system of analysis and interpretation, which I don't yet have. And flash is the gift from the subconscious to the consciousness. So a message was sent from the inner person that's full of knowledge to the outer person that's potentially knowledgeable, but is in fact chassid, to be memali chasaron, to satisfy a want. That's the process of the flash, of the enlightenment of Chochma. What's of course very, very important to explain initially, as a preliminary idea, is that flashes don't happen in a vacuum. It's not like you walk in the street or you're playing ball and boom, you get an idea in your head. And if that would be the case, the quality and the value and the integrity of that flash would be quite diminished. But rather, there's a hachshara, there's a preparation. In the end, the enlightenment, the new idea which appears in the radar of my awareness and consciousness, from my subconscious, it comes from the neshama. It's not from me. It's outside of me. But the requirements, the preparation that allow this flash to reach me and for the flash to be meaningful, for me to be able to dissect it and take it apart and develop it and use it is remarkable. There's a process, What is the process? The process is bittul. Bittul. Bittul essentially means that I cannot get my neshama to deliver to me new ideas unless I can break down my old ideas, if I can humble myself, if I can acknowledge my own deficiencies, my own limitations, and be almost broken about it. That bittul, that brokenness, that frustration opens me up for the neshama's message. Or to say it in different words, my neshama is constantly sending me flashes, but they're not reaching my consciousness because my ego pushes them away. When my ego is broken, that flash reaches my consciousness. I have a flash of information, which is theoretically an enormous amount of knowledge or an infinity of knowledge, that I then need to process. So Chochma is the neshama speaking to the person, the subconscious speaking to the person, based on the preparation the person makes in achshara sakli, in preparing the vessel and so forth and so on, which is the basis for the flash reading the conscious person. When we make a vessel, we do everything we can to be batal HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the flash reaches us and the flash offers us new information, new insight, new method, and so forth. That's what Chochma is. The cause for Chochma is the bittul. The effect of Chochma is the enlightenment. And then, when the flash reaches you, the flash is very, very exciting. It's very dynamic because it's a flash of genius. Flashes of genius are flashes of genius. When you begin to dissect that flash of genius, it becomes very tedious. Sometimes it fails, sometimes it's a disappointment, sometimes it produces, but it's always very difficult to take that flash and to process it into something very useful, right? The way Chassidus explains it is you get rid of the dazzle, you get rid of the makim, you get rid of the excitement of the flash of Chochma, and you replace it with bina, with analysis and with exactitude and with discernment and so forth and so on. So you go away from what's called the nekudas ha'askala, from the enlightened flash, in havchana and avon and bina. You bring it down to understanding. And of course, in that process, two things happen. The positive thing that occurs is that you gain mastery over the idea. The idea that came to you in an elusive flash, you can now grasp and hold in the hand of your mind, so to speak, because you understand it very, very well. The downside of Chochma is that when you transition from Chochma to Bina, all the excitement, all the light, all the richness, the metaphysical aspect, the transcendent aspect, which exists in that flash, has to be eliminated for the analytical mind to go into effect. And what you have is lacking that enlightenment, that richness, that light. So the upside of transitioning from Chochma to Bina is the thoroughness of what you get at the end, and the downside is that you're losing the flash. This is what happens. So what, in effect, is Chochma? Chochma is the language of the neshama. It's not the language of the person, it's the language of the soul. But it's close enough to the person that the language of the soul reaches the conscious person. The person actually has it. What do they have? They have a flash of an idea. that they don't know very well, they don't understand thoroughly, they haven't analyzed it and questioned it and doubted it and, as they say in yeshivish, torn it apart and put it back together to determine its integrity. This is already bina. In other words, the flash of Chochma is an enlightenment of an idea which is reaching your consciousness that you yourself don't yet know what you have. It's ephemeral, it's nebulous, it's vague. You have this enlightenment, you know it's good, you're not sure why. And you need to process it and give away the enlightenment to appreciate analytically, thoroughly, in detail, the advantages that lie in this idea. But in the flash, it's all very unavailable. Nevertheless, we say that frequently the messages from the subconscious to the consciousness are useful. My neshama gives you an idea, you process the idea, haltois, it's true, it's a correct idea. In other words, the subconscious is giving an idea to the consciousness, although the subconscious is so much higher than the subconscious, but it has integrity from the subconscious to the consciousness. When you develop and extract something useful from that idea, it has integrity based on the integrity that comes from the subconscious. I'll tell you what I mean in other words. I believe last week I talked to you about the concept of control. You want to have control. In any situation, in any framework, in any area of experiment, as they would call it, you want control. If you have no control, then you can't efficiently and effectively utilize the prospect, the opportunity, because it's out of your control. You need control. The control allows you to manage something. We have a mind, a brain. It's called a koyach, which means, amongst other things, a tool. The Hebrew word koyach has three translations: a tool, a potential, and a strength, an energy. What makes it a koyach is that I can control it. My mind I can control. I can steer it in particular directions. Learn this, don't learn this. Analyze it this way, analyze it this way. And my control over my mind determines the effectiveness of the use of my mind, the efficiency of the output, the chidushim that can come forward, and so forth. I have little control of my mind, I can't produce much. I have a lot of control of my mind, I can produce more. And just like I have control of my mind, I have control of my heart. Although it may not seem that way, the mides, my human emotions, my human passions, are also called koiches, which means, amongst other things, potentials. I have the potential to be kind. I can control that emotion about how I express it and how I use it practically. I have the emotion to be very severe and very exact, and I can control this tool to be able to manage it as I see fit. If a human being has tools and they can't manage those tools, they're not tools. In other words, a tool means something I hold by its ktsavis, by its border, by its edges, like I'm holding the edge of the table. And my holding it by its edges means I wrapped myself around it and I master it. And by mastering it, I can use it as I wish. What about Chochma? What about Chochma? How much control do we have over Chochma? How much control do we have over Chochma? Now, according to what I said before, there's two parts to the Chochma. There's what I do and there's what I get. What do I do in Chochma? I bittel myself. That's an act of control, right? I'm sitting and studying, and I reach an impasse. I'm learning something, I'm stuck, I have no explanation. So what do? I consult the commentaries. I consult the earlier experts. I consult people who produce theorems and theses about how to address various different questions. And I seek out their counsel in helping me resolve my problem, my question. If they all fail me, what do I do then? I sit and wallow. I eat my heart out. I'm broken. That brokenness is the bittel of my ego. It's the bittel of my mind. It's the bittel of how I think. And it is this bittel which opens me up, which makes me susceptible, which sensitizes me, that the flash of ideas which come from my subconsciousness to my consciousness should reach me. Right? That's the bittel aspect. So the bittel aspect I have control over. How much control do we have over the flash? How much control do we have over the message from the subconscious to the conscious? And the answer is you have no control. None. The neshama gives us a message. The neshama, this is not accurate, but it'll make the point. The neshama chooses what message to send. The message from the subconscious reaches my consciousness. Whatever it is, I can't help it. In other words, I can't control the enlightenment of Chochma. I can control the bittul, which sets up the enlightenment, but I cannot control the enlightenment of Chochma, which is fascinating, because we're calling Chochma a tool, a koyach. If we're calling Chochma a tool, it needs to be at my disposal. Yet we're saying that the reward for Chochma, the enlightenment, the light of idea that emerges from my subconsciousness to my consciousness, in helping me acquire knowledge and information which I do not yet have, what my neshama gives my mind, I have no control over. The neshama has. So the question becomes, if I have no control over what my subconscious gives my consciousness, why would the offering and the gift that comes to my subconscious, to my consciousness, be useful, rewarding, a good thing? If your neshama is shooting things at you, and you have no control over the neshama, it should be exciting maybe, delightful, enriching, inspiring, but not very useful. We live in two different worlds. The neshama lives in a godly world. I live in a physical world. The language of the neshama, the language of this world, are so disparate, they're so distinct, that the neshama tells me something, I hear something altogether different. Why is it useful? Why is it constructive? Why? In other words, if I cannot control Chochma, how come Chochma is useful? And not in all cases, but quite frequently, you have a flash of an idea of Chochma, and it turns out to be the basis for a whole new intuition, a whole new area of knowledge and study. It can be very, very helpful. Why would Chochma be useful, have no control over Chochma? And there's a very important answer to this question, a very, very important answer to this question. And it will set up the future ideas that I want to share this evening with you. And the important answer to this question is, you can't control the flash of Chochma that comes from your subconscious to your conscious. But not directly, indirectly. In other words, if we divide Chochma into two parts, as I said before, the bittul aspect and the enlightenment aspect, and we say the bittul aspect is at my disposal, I bittul me. The enlightened me aspect is not at my disposal, it's at the neshama's disposal, the neshama enlightens me. To be sure, even the enlightenment aspect of Chochma, I have indirect control over. Why or how? Simple. 3 people, 4 people, 5 people have an enlightenment of Chochma. One is a tipish, one is an unschooled fool. Another is a Chochma, he's a brilliant man, but he's learning an idea which is not in his specialty. It's in another field, another part of Torah. For example, he's a medical doctor, and he gets an enlightenment in a concept in Chassidus. And another person is very intelligent, very schooled, very educated in the criteria of learning and analyzing and reasoning, and he gets a flash, an enlightenment in his area of expertise. All 3 are getting a message from subconscious to the consciousness. By definition, a message from the subconscious to the conscious means an infinity. The neshama is telling my seichel, my brain, my mind, ideas. But all of us understand very simply that the simpleton, the tipish, whose enlightenment, who has an experience of enlightenment, if you were to analyze the inspiration that he gets, you realize that it's empty. It's as foolish as he is. In other words, the enlightenment from the subconscious to the consciousness is in a fool, foolish. And an intelligent person is intelligent. And the more fine-tuned and the more educated and the more conditioned a person is to appreciate ideas, the more meaningful and rich and true will be the enlightenment, the flash when it reaches the person. Why is this? Why when a simple person gets a flash, it's usually not that meaningful, and when a very intelligent person gets a flash, it's very, very meaningful? And the answer is very, very simple, because there's a concept of indirect preparedness. The Eibishter gave us a physical brain, called the moach. It's a keli. The Eibishter gave us a spiritual tool of ideas, which is called intelligence, seichel. The neshama of the moach is bislapshus in the guf the moach. The intelligence of the neshama, the koyach ha-seichel, is manifest, is revealed, is expressed in the brain, the neshama in the guf. And then you work. You work on learning, you work on understanding, you work on analyzing. And of course, as you work and as you grow, you are not only acquiring new knowledge, you're fine-tuning your skill. You're becoming a better learner, a better student, a better analyzer, a better dissector, if you will. And you get good at it. This process of becoming intellectually acute, sharper and sharper and sharper, is even physical. The brain gets developed physically, and it's certainly spiritually. How much of the mind, how much of the koyach haseichel, of the neshama of ideas that exist in the subconscious are reaching the brain of this person? And as you work and as you grow, you become better and better at ideas. So Chassidus says something very, very fascinating. You can be machshir the kli, you can prepare your vessel, you can qualify your brain and your mind to get access to ideas. You have no control over your neshama, none at all. But there is a phenomenon called Yohiv Chochma Salachakimin. V'havaya Nasan Chochma L'Shleima. The more you fine-tune your vessel, the more focused will be the messages from the subconscious to the consciousness. I have no control of my neshama, tells me, but I have control over my mind. The more conditioned, the more refined, the more developed my brain is, the sharper will be the message of subconscious to the consciousness. Why? Because I am reaching to my subconscious. When I refine my brain and I fine-tune my mind and my brain to learn and to analyze and to think and to reason and so forth and so on, my neshama is reaching that effort. My effort at refining my seichel, my moyach, and my koyach ha-seichel opens me up to more of what the neshama has to say. So if you'll think about it now, and we'll repeat again what we said, Chochma has two parts, the bittul part and the enlightenment part. The bittul part I can control. The enlightenment part, now we're going to say something a little bit different. We can control it indirectly. I have no control over the flesh. I have a control over my mind and control over my brain. The more I use my mind and my brain, the more focused, the more useful, the more real will be the enlightenment of subconscious. A tipish gets an enlightenment, it's usually a cliche. Sounds good, you analyze it, it becomes nothing. A brilliant person gets an enlightenment, the more he studies it, the more wisdom he finds in it, theoretically ad infinitum. So do you have control over the enlightenment that comes from Chochma? The answer is yes, indirectly. I cannot control the flash, but I can control me. And by controlling me, I can indirectly affect what the subconscious is going to give me to my consciousness in terms of a flash. Let me give you an illustration for this, which I believe I've given in the past, but it's most apropos. Have you ever heard the expression, an educated guess? An educated guess. What does an educated guess mean? Educated means I'm schooled. Guess means I have no idea. An educated guess is an oxymoron. If it's educated, it's not a guess. If it's a guess, it's not educated. An uneducated person guesses, and an educated person guesses. What happens? The answer is that in most cases, the educated guesser will outguess the uneducated guesser. Incomparably so. The educated guesser will be right much, much more times than the uneducated guesser will be. You know why? Because an educated guess is not a guess. An educated guess is so fine-tuned, a mind and a brain, so fine-tuned, so educated a person, that even things he doesn't know, he also knows. Even information and knowledge that has not yet reached me, I have such premonition, I have such instinct. I have been machshir my keli, I qualified, I readied my vessel so much that things that are above my conscious mind, above my absolute control, which is what Moyach Habina would be, in the Moyach Chochma I don't have such full control, but because I have mastered my brain, I even have access to ideas that I don't have access to. My neshama's knowledge is available to me even when I don't know it yet. So an educated guesser means I have a lot of knowledge, and I have a sense of the direction of the knowledge. So without knowing, I know. And it's the fact of the matter is that very frequently, in many cases, a person who gets guesses in an educated way is right, because it's not a guess. It's a premonition. I prepare the keli, the Eibusha gives me the air, the more prepared the keli is, the more I have a relationship to the air that's reaching me. That's Chochma. So Chochma means something that comes to me from some place, I don't know where that place is, that I cannot control, and yet based on how I control myself, that's how much meaning the Chochma is going to have. Let's take this to the next level. If we say that I can control my mind, and by controlling my mind, I can indirectly control the flash of Chochma, what we're really saying is the flash of Chochma is not random. The flash of Chochma is not uncontrollable light. The flash of Chochma is actually controlled, disciplined, focused, with purpose. But the flash of Chochma's control and discipline and purpose is very, very different than your control and my control and your discipline and my discipline and so forth. I'll tell you what the difference is. How do we control anything? By holding on to it. How do we hold on to it? By holding its borders. What are its borders? It's vessels. It's keli. How do I control a hammer? By holding it. How do I control my brain? By holding it. And the only way for me to hold the tool of my mind is with my brain. The only way for me to control the tool of my passion is through my heart, and so forth and so on. I hold, so to speak, the holdable part of that koyach, the tool, the keli, and through it have control over the koyach itself. In ideas, in seichel, that's called oisius. Ideas are limited because of the words. I hold the words. Via the words I have access to the idea itself, but the words itself are very, very limited. So I have control over the gvul, over the keli, over the yosis, and by having control over the words to represent that idea, I have control over the idea itself. What is Chochma? Chochma is a wordless idea. Chochma means a flash from my subconscious to my consciousness that I cannot hold. Why can't I hold it? Because there's no words. There's nothing by which to hold it. It's ephemeral. It's vague. It's nebulous. How do I hold something that doesn't have any handles? In the flash of Chochma, there's an enlightenment with integrity and even a clarity, but I can't hold it. I can't control it. Why can't I control it? Because it has no achis, there's no base, it has no handles. In other words, my neshama is giving me an idea that's speaking to me. I am a person who invests a lot of time and effort in understanding things. And therefore, the flashes that come from my neshama to my mind, from my subconscious to my conscious, are frequently with integrity. You analyze them, you take them apart, you get some real information. But when your neshama is speaking into your consciousness, the neshama is not giving your consciousness something that it can control. Your neshama is giving your consciousness, the correct word would be a light. And the emphasis is a light that you can't hold because there's no vessels. Oirabali keli. So your neshama is giving you an enlightenment that you cannot hold because there's no vessels. What that means, in other words, is as follows. How do you control something? How do you focus something? By holding it and boxing it in. Your neshama focuses, your neshama holds, your neshama controls, no box. There's no keli, there's no oasis, there's no container, no containment. The light from the subconscious comes to the conscious person with a focus. What's the basis of that focus? The basis of that focus is not limit. The basis of that focus is not words. The basis of that focus is not the handle by which you hold it. The basis of that focus is the integrity of the neshama. The neshama gives you an idea. That idea has truth. That idea you cannot control, and yet it's an idea. In other words, it's at limit and form. But it's not limited in form because it's controlled by oisius. The oir hanefesh reaches you in a contained way, in a limited way. That's the amazing thing about Chochma. The amazing thing about Chochma is my neshama is giving me something that is to me useful and real, even though what my neshama is giving is something that I cannot hold. So here's how it works. Now let's do some technical speech. There's a lot of levels in Chochma, a lot. But in Chassidus, in general, and the word in general means that there are, of course, exceptions to this rule. When we talk about Chochma, we speak about 4 levels. And from the bottom to the top they are, number 1, Yesod Abba, the Yesod of Chochma. Yossi is the end of Chochma, right? But from Malchus, yes? The second level would be called Midas, the emotions of Chochma, the leanings, tendencies of Chochma. The third level would be called Re'iyah de Chochma, the visual of Chochma. The Chochma can see things intellectually, or see things with the eye of the intellect. And the highest what they give Chochma is what they call Mad Chochma, the essence of Chochma, which is the bittul of Chochma, and so on. Only on the first level, only on the level of Yesod Abba, only on the level of the flash, is there enough words for me to be able to control. That means, when my Chochma gives me a flash of an idea, and I take that idea and I dissect it, and I develop from Chochma Bina, it's because I found words in that flash. I found limitation in that flash, which I can develop. That limitation, those words, are only on the lowest level, Yesod. Midas of Chochma, when my Chochma is leaning, my Chochma tells me kosher or treif, the Gemara tells us a story, you know it's kosher, you can't possibly explain it, there's just no words to account for it. The third level of Chochma is called the Re'iyah. You see something with the clarity of the neshama, it's impossible for you to bring it to somebody else, to argue it, to explain it, and so forth and so on. What this means, in other words, is that there is ideas in my soul and there's ideas in my brain. The ideas in my brain are very limited. The ideas in my soul are very abstract and very unlimited. So much of what my neshama knows, my brain will never be able to know. Not because my brain is not strong enough, but because my brain can only know what it can control. My neshama it cannot control. When my neshama comes to my brain and delivers an idea, gives the brain an idea, frequently the neshama is giving my brain an idea. My brain can take that idea, but not control it. On the level of Yesod, I can control it. On the levels above, the Midas of Chochma, the Re'iyah of Chochma, and Ma of Chochma, something is reaching my consciousness from my subconsciousness. It's clearly with focus, it's clearly with purpose, it's clearly intelligent. I cannot control it. I guess the best way to put it is, I can't explain it to you. I certainly can't debate it, because I know it on a level of oyer, I know it on a level of enlightenment, I know it on a level of richness, but I don't know it on a level of words. I'll give you the example that I started to mention earlier. Chassidus brings this example. There is a rule in halacha that says, silence is acquiescence. Silence is conceding. That means, Chachamim argue. So each one makes his case and each one refutes his counterpart. As you're being refuted, you have to defend yourself. If you run out of defenses, if your counterpart argues with you and you can't defend it, what do? You keep quiet. That silence means you lost. It's over. Which means to say that when the Chachamim determine halacha based on the Gemara, they read a Gemara that brings Hillel said like this, Shammai like this, they argued back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Hillel asked Shammai a question, or Shammai asked Hillel a question. His counterpart couldn't answer, the halacha is like his opponent. That's all. So the Gemara tells a story that Rav said something to his students, and the students of Rav didn't understand it, and they asked him why, and Rav was silent. Shasek Rav. A mice with a chicken, with an egg and a hen, I don't know, and a baby chicken and so on. So Rav was silent. Now, how would you normally interpret Rav's shesika, Rav's silence? You would interpret Rav's shesika as, I made a mistake, I'm wrong, I'm conceding. I made a separation between an Efreich and a Beya, there shouldn't be such a difference, for example. And yet, Chassidus brings many paskin, many codifiers of halacha, paskin like Rav. And the Maamar Chassidus ask a question, I don't get it. We have a rule that when rabbis argue, when Rabbi A asks Rabbi B a question, and Rabbi B does not respond, that's his form of conceding. Why would you paskin like Rav when Rav was silent? And the answer that's brought in Chassidus is, Rav is no ordinary rabbi, he's the greatest of them all, he's very extraordinary. And we don't interpret Rav's silence as conceding, we interpret Rav's silence as saying, I have an explanation, I can't tell it to you. I know why I can't put it into words. Why? Why can't I argue every argument? Why can't I debate every issue and force everyone to agree with me? And the answer is because ideas have many levels. And the highest levels of ideas are beyond words. You can know them intellectually. We use the word feel for lack of words. But we don't mean to feel in an emotional means, to intellectually sense a truth of ideas, which is ultimately intellectually sound and credible and true, but impossible to debate, impossible to prove, impossible to put into words. The highest level of ideas that can begin to find that kind of form is the lowest level of Chochma called Yossi. Rav knew why he said this is kosher and this is treif, but Rav couldn't find the words because there's no words that can carry so subtle an idea. Which of course explains something very deep. Many people know the famous story with the previous Rabbi that he was being cross-examined, and the interrogator was a Jewish fellow. So they were mocking religion. I mean, the communists, the Soviets really, really mocked religion. They made so much fun of Yiddishkeit. And he tells the previous Rebbe cynically, he says, you know what, instead of me asking you questions and arguing with you, why don't we do something else? He asked them the following. He says to the previous Rebbe, you are a religious man. Is it because of blind faith or because of intellectual conviction also? So the Rebbe said it's both. It's blind faith and it's intellectual conviction. So he says to the Rebbe, if your religious life and identity is based on intellectual proof, prove it to me, explain it to me. And the previous Rebbe gave him an answer which is not for the moment. But many people have asked the question, if faith, if religion, if Yiddishkeit is valid, is sound intellectually, why can't it sell itself? Why can it not argue its own cause? Why can it not sit down with all the skeptics and the cynics and the agnostics and, quote, prove to them, end quote, that this is emes and they're shaken? Why is it so complicated? Why is it that from people, religious people, are so convinced they have the truth, and other people are convinced that the exact opposite of the truth? Why can't they come to an emek hashava? Why can't they reach a point where they can sit down, grind it out, let the best man win, and finished? There's a very good answer. Because not everything you understand you can explain. Not everything you know you can articulate. And it's not necessarily a lack of words. In other words, it's not necessarily oimek hamasik. Sometimes oimek hamusik. There are ideas that are intellectual ideas, which means they're sound and true, that are so subtle and so abstract, they literally do not lend themselves to words. You know them consciously in your brain. It's an enlightenment. The light is reaching your conscious mind, but it's pure light. Because there's no words, because there's no vessels, you know that it's real. To you it's true. It's impossible to argue. This is why you can't necessarily argue everything about God, because God, of course, is the most esoteric, is the most transcendent, is the most chochma-like of ideas, of intellectual truths. And as a consequence, you can have a real intellectual sense that this is real and be incapable of arguing it because it's above words, above argument. This is Chochma. This is Chochma. This is what we mean when we say that Chochma is the bridge between the subconscious and the conscious. Your neshama is infinite. You're finite. Chochma communicates from the infinite to the finite in such a way that there's actually some of the infinity in the conscious person. Koyach HaChochma means the ability to control the uncontrollable, to focus the unfocused, to master the unmasterable. Your neshama is infinite, and your neshama is giving you real ideas that are absolutely real and true in this real world, but on a level of no limit, on a level of light. The highest level is Ma, the second level is Re'iyah, the third level is Midas, the fourth level is Yossi. And in a way, this is the concept of Ruach HaKodesh. What does it mean, divine inspiration? We visualize divine inspiration as, God coming to you, tapping you on the back and whispering something in your ear. Perhaps that's a nevuah concept. I don't think it's that simple either. But the Ruach HaKodesh simply means your neshama is giving your brain ideas on a level that should not reach your brain, because they're completely beyond the keli, the containment, the limitation of your brain. Your neshama is giving light to your conscious mind that even when it reaches your conscious mind, is continuing to be, in quotes, the light of the neshama, but it's the light of the neshama that reaches your brain with an integrity, with an emes in this world, that although it's real, although it's true, cannot be articulated, and it can't be argued, and it can't be debated. And I actually made myself a copy of the Hayom Yom. There's a Hayom Yom near the beginning that says, he quotes the Karban Ha'eda, which is a commentary on Yerushalmi, that says, what is Ruach HaKodesh? Shemagalon Leirazei Teira has access to the secrets of the Teira, which is Helem the Chochma. Helem the Chochma means every level of Chochma above a flash. Every level of Chochma which is beyond words. The Midas Sheba Chochma, the Re'iyah de Chochma, and Mada Chochma can reach your conscious mind. You know them, you understand them, you can't even articulate them. That's Chochma. Which means, in other words, Chochma, like I said to you earlier, is the Ein Sof reaching the Gavul, the infinite Neshama reaching the conscious person, and actually delivering some of what the Ein Sof is to the conscious person. What is the most meaningful part of what I just said? What is the most meaningful aspect of what I just said? And I'm sure as you listen to this, many of you have different things to say. But to me, the most meaningful aspect of what I just said is that this Chochma means a tool that allows me to control the uncontrollable. That's what it means. A tool I can hold. Light I cannot hold. Chochma is a tool. It's a moyach. It's a keli. But the tool which is Chochma is going to have a light that you can't hold. Because the light is going to reach the brain, or the koyach of Chochma is going to be Helem of Chochma, beyond the flash, the level of Midas, level of Re'iyah, level of Ma. So I'm going to have knowledge that I control, I master, because I was machsher my kli, I prepared my brain, I fine-tuned my brain to such a degree that the enlightenment should reach me in a meaningful and an enlightened way. So I have it. It's at my disposal. I control the transmission from the subconscious to my consciousness because of what I focused on, and have absolutely no way to grasp the idea which I currently have. In other words, it's giving me an ability to hold the unholdable, to have the unhavable. The neshama gives me stuff. The neshama gives me ideas, seichel, intelligent ideas. It's helem. There's no way for me to hold it because there's nothing but which for me to hold it. That's what's so impressive about Chochma. This is why Chochma is the bridge between Ein Sof and Gavul, between the neshama of the neshama and the neshama. Chochma is a tool which I own, I can control. And it allows me to control what I should not be able to control, which is the infinity of my neshama. So if we would, so to speak, reset ourselves, we would say that there's three levels. The level over which I have no control is the Ein Sof of the neshama. The level of which I have absolute control is the levels of the neshama in the guf, from bina and down, which has a koyach and it has a moyach, a keli and an ur, which I can absolutely control. And in between those two, you have chochma. Chochma I can control, but it's allowing me to control the uncontrollable. And basically, it's in between. It's not as infinite as the infinite level, but it's not as controllable and graspable as the finite level. To be sure, there are arguments that say that in the control of the uncontrollable of Chochma, there is advantage even over the simple infinity, which is called in Chassidus the idea of Kabbalah, Pnimius Abba, Pnimius Atek. The source of the limited Chochma is Atek itself, as the Ein Sof. But basically, that's how it is. There's the infinite, there's the finite, and there's Chochma. Chochma is something which I can control via the vessel, and it gives me access to Oyer, which is beyond the vessel. I'm able to control indirectly the uncontrollable. I have a light of seichel. It gives me information. It focuses me. It locks me in, but I can't grasp it. And this is the long version of what we learned last week. The Ein Sof is Ein Sof. It's infinite. It represents the idea of Mesiras Nefesh. The Gavul is finite. The Chochma is in between those two. So, as a human being, if you get an experience of the infinity of your neshama, the beligvul of your neshama, it came from the neshama. You have no control. When it emerges from the neshama, you have a mesiras nefesh. Yeah, people get moments. People have arousals. People do tshuva. People change their whole lives. Why? The infinite neshama emerged on the surface, on the conscious levels of their being, and swept them away, took them over. When your yechida shebenefesh, your pinteliyid, your neshama l'neshama emerges, you become totally transformed. Whether it's a form of mesiras nefesh or it's a form of tshuva, its details become totally transformed. But you have no control. To the contrary, it takes you over. It sweeps away who you are. It overwhelms the control you have over the parts of your neshama which are controllable via the mind and the guf. That's what mesiras nefesh is. Let's read this inside. Line 96, Sif Beis. V'hinei. Lefichach bechinas o madreges mesiras nefesh. Accordingly, the concept of mesiras nefesh means complete sacrifice to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And specifically what is called mesiras nefesh al kiddush Hashem, when a person gives away his life to sanctify the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says the Rebbe, Shu inyan habitl b'metzias mamash le'in sei Baruch Hu. It's total bittul, total nullification to the Ein Sof. In other words, the human being ceases to exist as such when the infinite Shama emerges. You have a brain, it's not working right now. You have a heart, it's not functioning right now. You have senses, they don't sense anything right now. They're overwhelmed by infinity. And it's nimshach dafke. Where does it come from? It's atzmas hanefesh. It comes from the infinity of the neshama, shalamayla me'aseichel, which is beyond the mind, beyond the intelligence. In other words, beyond the controllable person. The controllable person begins with bina, that's seichel. The uncontrollable person is the Ein Sof. The in-between is Chochma. When the infinite inner person emerges and it inspires you for mesiras nefesh. And as I mentioned very briefly before, today's day and age, few people are experiencing mesiras nefesh. The mesiras nefesh of the modern time is tshuva. And tshuva is the most remarkable thing, and we all know it, yeah. People who are totally secular, steeped in self-indulgences, complete narcissists. One day something happens and they have this incredible movement of tshuva, and they just transform totally for a time. That's not them at all. It's entirely the neshama. When the neshama subsides, they have to pick up the pieces. And it's not easy for a person who's gotten this incredible thrust from the Eibishter for tshuva, and then that thrust subsides. What's calling them now? So now you have to use classic Hasidic language, make a vessel. The vessels are tedious, complicated, laborious, not nearly as exciting, as inspiring, and certainly not as energized. But that's the way it works, because you had no control over the tshuva. You had no control over the mesiras nefesh. It was raw soul that swept away your identity. She'botol la'atzmas ein sof baruch hu. This bittul to the Eibishter, to God Almighty, is shalamayla mayla gam kemei chochma. It's beyond even chochma. Just like a candle has absolutely nothing in the presence of a torch, of sunlight, the same is true, Chochma compared to the Ein Sof. Aval, it's understood that this infinity of the neshama, the beligvul of the neshama, that when it appears on the radar of your awareness, sweeps you away, is leidai b'bchinas heichel shabenefesh labad. Your intelligence isn't sufficiently powerful to manage this infinity. Because your intelligence, which I'm going to assume means bina, is a vessel which is finite, and this is an infinite force. And then he says, even the chochma, my nefesh, cannot manage this infinity because it's kli bilvad lelakus. It's only a vessel. And when the infinity of the neshama emerges, shows up on the scene, it sweeps me away, not only is the limited person overwhelmed, even the chochma, the person is overwhelmed. And the Rebbe says, this is the meaning of the idea that a person who loves God Almighty with his whole soul. And the whole soul, says the Mishnah, means afilu neitlas nafshecha, the idea of mesiras nefesh, and even the mesiras nefesh of kiddush Hashem, that sweeps away the person. And it overwhelms the garments of machshava dibur ma'is. This is not about thought, it's not about speech, it's not about action, it's not about intelligence, it's not about emotions, it's not about senses, it's about sacrifice. And therefore, mituras, something else is explained. Why never in Torah do you find a reason for Mesiras Nefesh? Mesiras Nefesh is a mitzvah. Mesiras Nefesh HaKiddush Hashem. Some causes, some mitzvahs require the idea of martyrdom, self-sacrifice. Says the Alter Rebbe, there's no reason for Mesiras Nefesh HaKiddush Hashem. Rak al ahava. For love, there is a reason. Why should I love God Almighty? I should love God because God is my life. But for self-sacrifice, there is no time. Why not? Ella, the reason is, Shehu mipnei, Shamesiras nefesh nimshach mitzad ha'bechina shalamal mi'aseichel. Mesiras nefesh comes from higher than reason. And it enters into the space, into the awareness of your mind and identity in a way that overwhelms it. There's no brain. How can you have reason? The force of the Mesiras Nefesh is so powerful that it shuts down the function of the mind. How can you fill a mind with an explanation for something this forceful, for something this powerful, for something this overwhelming? There's Maamar Chassidis, and there's a famous footnote from the Rabbi in Maamar Tavshin Tes that says that Mesiras Nefesh is not a mitzvah saseh. It's not a mitzvah altogether. And the Rebbe holds that there's two types of Mesiras Nefesh. The Mesiras Nefesh which is not a mitzvah, and the Mesiras Nefesh which is a mitzvah. And incidentally, this is being played out of Purim. And the Purim Maimed, the Rebbe is a Tavshin Yudav, 1951, which is an incredible Maimed. And the Rebbe himself called that Maimed. One of the many, many things that's brought up in that Maimed is the same idea the Rebbe has in Ha'or and Tavshin Tes about different levels of Mesiras Nefesh. One which isn't a mitzvah and the other one that is a mitzvah. Here he says something different. Even the level of Mesiras Nefesh which is lower, that is a mitzvah, has no time. How can he give a reason to something that completely short circuits, overwhelms the brain, the keli, the brain? So that explains Mesiras Nefesh, right? So let's repeat again. You have three things: the infinite, the finite, and Chochma. So we understand the finite, that's the controllable world. I can manage my life because my life is manageable. There's the uncontrollable, there's the infinite world. I cannot control my soul because the soul doesn't allow himself to be controlled. And there's Chochma. Chochma is how you control the uncontrollable, how you master the unmasterable, the bridge between the conscious and the subconscious. So we continue reading on line 102. This explains another idea, which is altogether different. And yet somehow these two ideas are joined together in one phrase. And that is Inyan v'Talmud Torah keneged kulam, the notion how learning Torah is equal to all of the mitzvahs. And the Rebbe is now going to argue that learning Torah is the equivalent of Mesiras Nefesh. How could Mesiras Nefesh and learning Torah be put in the same world? Mesiras Nefesh is so sacrificial, it's so overwhelming. Torah is intellectual, it's contained, and it's limited. The answer to Rabbi is because when he speaks here about Torah, he doesn't mean the understanding of the Torah. He means the Chochma of the Torah. How in Torah you have indirectly manageable, indirectly controllable Ein Sof. And he's going to say that just like Mesiras Nefesh is an expression of the infinity of the Neshama, the fact that in Torah you have Chochma also means that it's an expression of the infinity of the Neshama. And as a consequence, we're going to correlate Mesiras Nefesh with Torah. Torah is the whole Yiddishkeit, Mesiras Nefesh is the whole Yiddishkeit. V'gam, a second point, that we find, in the Parsha Krishma it says, you have to love Hashem with your whole heart, which the Mishnah interprets to mean Bishnei Yitzerech, both Yitzes, the Yitzatev and Yitzerach. Then it says B'chol Nafshecha, with your whole soul, which is interpreted to mean Afilu Nafshecha, even if it takes your life. Then it says B'chol Meidecha, with all your might. Believable. What is the answer to loving Hashem with all your might? Studying Torah. The Ma'oidecha Hainu. What does Ma'oid mean? Ahavarabba Bligvul. Infinite love. Likol v'libatla b'yitzei baruch to become one with the Ein. And when you have an infinite love to the Eibishter, how could you possibly satisfy an infinite urge? An urge which is truly infinite is infinitely unsatisfiable in a finite world. How are you supposed to satisfy an infinite urge, and specifically through Torah? How are you Dibarta Bam V'Gemer? How by studying Torah, which is a finite thing, it's an intellectual thing, it's a contained thing, satisfying an infinite urge? That's the second question. What is the meaning of a Talmud Torah Geneged Kulam? And how can you satisfy Ava b'chol meidecha through learning Torah? Gam, a third question is, Bepirush b'chol nafshecha shu mesiras nefesh mamash. In the interpretation of the words with your whole soul, which the Mishnah says means afilu netles nafshecha, says the Rabbi Yadua the yesh gamkin eid pirush. There's another translation of b'chol nafshecha. The second translation of b'chol nafshecha is very, very different than the first translation of b'chol nafshecha. The simple translation of b'chol nafshecha is mesiras nefesh, giving away your life, martyrdom. What's the second translation of b'chol nafshecha? Hainu gimel levusha nefesh machshava dibur ma'aseh, to give God your thought, speech, and action. Lekashlam, to tie them and bind them. B'machshava dibur ma'aseh shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the thought, speech, and action of the Eibishter are the Eisek HaTorah v'mitzvahs. Says the Rebbe, b'chol nafshecha means self-sacrifice, b'chol nafshecha means doing mitzvahs. What's the connection? Im kein eich beis pirushim elu. Two interpretations of b'chol nafshecha. One means taking your life, giving your life. The other means translating your Yiddishkeit into action. What's the association? What's the correlation? What's the connection between b'chol nafshecha, meaning mesiras nefesh, and b'chol nafshecha translating into action? Now, I just want to share b'kitzer an idea here. And the idea is that it says in Chassidus that love is in the heart. And when you say that love is in the heart, it's only in the heart. What does that mean? I could love God in my heart and not have the capacity to do what He says. Why? Because love is an emotion. Actions are behaviors. And there's a distance between what I feel in my heart and my actions. So if I love the Eibishter and I'm going to do what He says, based on that love, I have to make myself do it. Because naturally I could love and do whatever I want. What happens if the love is so intense and so powerful that it takes you over completely? The love is not just in your heart, it's in your whole person. When the love is so strong that it takes over your entire person, acting based on that love is automatic. If I love the Eibishter, I do what He says. And in Chassidus, that's the difference between b'chol levavacha and b'chol nafshecha. I love Hashem in my heart, even the heart of my Yetzer Hara, but in my heart. Or b'chol nafshecha means I love Him so much, it affects even machshava dibur ma'aseh. If the love in Hashem spills over from to Hashem, spills over from the heart to the whole body, I don't only love God, I automatically do what God wants. And that's the taich b'chol nafshecha. You love Hashem so much that you automatically do what He says. And the question is, how can you correlate b'chol nafshecha meaning mesiras nefesh, and b'chol nafshecha means that I love Hashem so much I do what He wants? There's two very separate things. And the Rebbe says they're not separate. You know why they're not separate? Answer, Chochma. The idea that I love Hashem in my heart and I automatically do what Hashem wants me to do practically comes from Chochma. Chochma is the infinity of the neshama that I can control indirectly. Mesiras nefesh al kiddush Hashem is the infinity of the neshama that I can't control at all. Thus they're similar. That's going to be the answer that we're going to be learning right now. V'ha'inyan, the answer is, ki ha'teireh chochma seyizbarach. In Torah of Hashem's chochma. And this doesn't mean the intelligence of the Torah, what we understand. It means the Ein Sof, which is in the chochma, which I'm controlling only indirectly. Shabbat Tzilus, Shabbat Malu B'Sher Yisei Baruch Hu, Mamish and Chochma of Ein Sof. This is discussed, of course, in Tanya chapter 18. Then he says, Vaiter, Ve'chochma, the Atzilus, Nislapsha, Bechochma, the Briyatir Nasih. The Chochma of Atzilus reveals itself and it shows itself in the lower madregas, in the lower worlds, in Briya, Yetzir, Nasiyah. Kedei, and eventually, it's Lehislabesh, Ba'aloches, Haruches, Lafanenu. It reveals itself in the laws and the Shulchan Aruch as we study it down here in this world. Shem Medaber and Binyanim Gashmin speak about physical things. Dasi in the physical world. Peah, Trumas, Maisis, Yesa Shabbos, V'chul. Ukeshahadam leimei Torah. When a person studies Torah, umevin and he understands, umasik and he reaches, eiz halucha la'ashuri, to understand any law thoroughly. Harei, emphasis. There is what he's learning. There is what he's understanding. And there is chochmasei. Chochmasei means the infinity of his neshama, which he can only control indirectly, which is miskasheres. Chochmasei is barach, ties to the infinity of Hashem, which I can only control indirectly. Shabbat halachazu, which is in this halach. They become one, like it says in Tanya chapter 5. what you'll see soon is that there's two separate ideas. There's the idea that I understand, and the idea that in the idea that I understand, there's Chochma. The idea that I understand is truly finite. The fact that hidden inside the idea that I understand is Chochma is the indirectly controllable infinity of the neshama. And listen to these words. We explained the above. Above means mostly last week, and we reviewed it again tonight. The neshama is infinite. As we explained at length, there's the infinite neshama which have no control over. The finite neshama, which is a tool of control. And the Chochma, says the Rebbe, the infinity of the neshama I have no control over at all. At the very least, the intellectual tool of Chochma called Seichel. That means the creative intellectual tool, who clearly Atzmas HaNeshama, is a vessel for infinity. Chochma, HaSeichel over here means Chochma, is the bridge, is the in-between, the uncontrollable infinity and the controllable limit. This is how you can indirectly control the infinity and bring it into a vessel indirectly. I'm on line 113. The same is true on high. Ein Sof means I have no control over it. When Ein Sof emerges and appears, it burns everything in its path. It just shuts everything down because of its force. And it's even higher than Chochma. In other words, the infinity, which is the equivalent of Mesiras Nefesh, is so uncontrollable, even Chochma can't control it. Says the Rabbi, there's a concept of Ein Sof being in Chochma. The concept of Ein Sof being in Chochma is quite different than Ein Sof in its raw form, because this is an uncontrollable infinity, and this is an infinity which is controllable indirectly, but they're both infinite. Because Chochma is that unique tool, that unique place, which is a vessel in Tzei Baruch. It can control the uncontrollable. This is the famous footnote in chapter 35. When you have bittul, the bittul opens you up to be able to manage the unmanageable, to be able to have access to the inaccessible. Since this is the case, when a Jew learns Torah and understands it intellectually, but hidden behind the intellect of the Torah is an Ein Sof, which you'll see soon he may not even consciously feel. He is joining not just his Seichel with the Seichel of Elokus. In other words, not just his Bina with the Bina of the Eibishter, but subliminally his Chochma with the Chochma of the Eibishter. His indirectly controllable infinity with Kvayochel, the indirectly controllable infinity, Lamaila, B'Chochma Shabbatera, Shechachmasa Yizbarach, the wisdom of Torah, which is Eibishter's wisdom. And Aideza, consequently, Memele Nase Gamkin, this affects his Skalalus V'Yichud, 117 now, a unity of Atzmus Hanshama Shalamayla Me'aseichel, the infinity of the Neshama, which is altogether higher than Chochma, Be'erin Tzei Baruch Hu Mama Shalamayla Ma'b'chinas Chochma Elach, to the infinity on high. Kivan the Erin Sof Melubash B'Chochma Elach She'Halach Hazu. Since I am learning a finite halach, and when I'm learning a finite halacha, the Chochma of my Neshama is connected to the Chochma of Lamayla, in other words, my indirect control over the godliness of Chochma. Therefore, the infinity of my Neshama is enjoying the infinity of Elokus. So what is special about Torah? What's special about Torah is that in Torah you have Chochma. What is special about Chochma is how infinity comes into the vessels. For Gam, another aspect, that Nishmas ha'adam shalamayla me'aseichel shalei, the neshama of a person which is higher than intelligence, melubeshes b'keach ha'seichel, exists in the tool of Chochma, k'shari nefesh nika nefesh ha'maskels. Nefesh ha'maskels is an expression used in Tanya chapter 3. If you want to read about this, take a look in Hemshech Ayin Beis, Chelik Aleph Perek Reish Gimel, which is pages in the old print, page 411 and 412. Taf Yud Av, Taf Yud Beis. He explains Nefesh HaMaskels is the bridge between the Seichel and the infinity of the Neshama. Chochma. It's the unique center. Imkein, as a consequence, Be'eskashus, V'yichud, Seichel, Od, V'chochma, and we study Torah. And we understand the Torah. Nasa Gamken, Yichud, Elyon, Yesem, he said, there are many unions taking place. My mind is becoming unified with the Seichel of Elokus. In other words, my limited Bina is joining with the limited Seichel of Elokus. My Chochma, which is the indirectly controllable infinity of the Neshama, is joining the Chochma Shalamayla, and the infinity of the Neshama itself is joining the infinity of Ein Sof. Because Torah is Chochma, that's the key. V'hu, and this is his galus atzmas neshama, ba'atzmas eitzei baruch hu, the infinity of the neshama, which is totally uncontrollable by the conscious person, with the infinity of Elokus, and of course the indirectly controllable infinity, which is Chochma, with the controllable infinity of godliness, which is Chochma Shel Maila. Because the Nas Dafka the Kashas Seichel v'Chochma is Teira. Do it learning Teira. Because in Teira, in addition to the Seichel, to the Bina, you have Chochma. But that she said, this is what it says in Zeh, that I say Chali Allah de Kutsha B'richu. Teira is the highest chamber for HaKadosh Baruch. Now let me share something with you. At the end of the Tanya, there is an Igeres HaKedesh called Lahav Mashkasa Rabbi Yitzchayim. It may be the most difficult piece in the whole Sefer. It's quite long. And it's Pasha Kabbalah. It's Kunta Sacher. And if I may insert my website, I like to advertise it from time to time because a lot of people who watch me regularly here don't know about my website. Inside Chassidishe.org. If you listen to go to my Tanya classes, particularly my Tanya lessons, I think you have 5 classes in this Igeres HaKedesh alone. This Igeres HaKedesh talks about Tefillah, Mitzvahs, Teira, Neshamas, Malachim. And I think I gave a separate class for each. One of the ideas this Igeres HaKedesh says is the following. And I want you to change hats. Whatever hat you're wearing, take off, put on a different one. But this hat should have no preconceptions. I want to plant new form in your mind, okay? It's a lot of information to absorb for one class. And if you don't get this part, don't worry about it. In this Igeres HaKedesh, the Alter Rebbe says there's 3 madregas. There's Ein Sof, there's Neshama, and there's Nefesh Ruach. That means infinite light of the soul, the finite light of the soul which is godly, and the finite light of the soul which is a creation. 3 madregas, beklalas. Ein Sof, which is all called Ein Abba, the light of Chochma. Neshama, the light of Neshama, and then Nefesh Ruach. Basically what this means is that there's levels of Neshama that are so low that godliness is concealed. There's a level of the neshama which is so high that it's infinite. And then there's a level of the neshama which is finite and godly. The level of the neshama which is finite and godly is called neshama. Now, without going into the elaboration of it, when godliness comes from a higher world to a lower world, if it passes through the channels of nefesh or ruach, nefesh creates the world, ruach creates the malachim. So although it's coming from godliness, nefesh and ruach cover over the world which comes from nefesh. The malachim which come from ruach are klipa, are yesh. Teira and mitzvahs come from neshama. Neshama is limited, but it's godly, whatever that means, and we don't have time to discuss it. When you understand Teira with your moyach, your neshama is connected to the neshama of Teira. But the neshama is finite. It's only this is the godliness of Gevul, the godliness of affinity. But then there's the third idea. The third idea is called Chochma Allah. Chochma Allah is the infinity. So again, without going into the big pilpul, the big ariches, here's how you would say it. There's nefesh, ruach, neshama in Atzilus. There's nefesh, ruach, neshama in Bri. There's nefesh, ruach, neshama in Yetzira. Nefesh, ruach, neshama in Asiyah. And the nefesh, ruach, neshama in Asiyah is lower than the nefesh, ruach, neshama in Yetzira. In other words, the nefesh creates worlds. Ruach creates malachim. Neshama creates neshamas and teira and mitzvahs. They're not the same nefesh, ruach, and neshama. The nefesh which creates the world, and the ruach which creates the malachim, and the neshama which creates yid and teira and mitzvahs and asiyah is much lower than the nefesh which creates the world of Yetzirah, the ruach which creates the malachim of Yetzirah, and the neshama which creates teira and mitzvahs, neshama Yisrael and Yetzirah, and so forth. There are different levels. This is klipa, this is kedusha, but gevul, there's different gevuls. But then there's a third idea. The third idea is that in Teira you have Chochma Allah, in Teira you have Insof. What's Chochma Allah? The indirectly controllable godliness, which we spoke about for most of this evening's class. So Chassidus says, when you do a mitzvah, you connect it to a neshama. And when you study and when you study Teira, do a mitzvah, in addition to being connected to a neshama, inside the neshama is Chochma Allah. Inside the finite godliness is the infinity of godliness. Why and how is not at the moment important. What is important is you could feel neshama. You can't feel Rabbi. You can't feel Chochma. You can feel the godliness which is finite. You cannot feel the godliness which is infinite. So in Torah, you have Chochma. Why in Torah you have Chochma? Because Torah passes through the neshama aspect. Neshama is a lakus begvul, and there the shechas to Chochma law, and that's what the Rebbe now says on line 122. You don't feel Ein Sof. His scholar you're learning Torah, you're understanding it. Understanding it's control. Control is neshama. The idea that hidden behind that control is Chochma law. In other words, godliness which is controllable indirectly, you don't know. You want to understand it. Intellectually, so you get to reach it. And Chochma here means the controllable aspect of the Mayach, like Bina. Moreover, the idea that when you're learning, you're controlling your learning is to such a degree that you even get, your ego is enhanced. Because it's about you, it's about limitation. If you understood well. So the idea that as you're learning Torah, you're bringing into this world, quote, indirectly controllable infinity is completely subconscious, it's subliminal. You experience what you're understanding, which is the neshama of it. But the chochma of it, the Rabbi, the Ein Sof, you don't understand it all. You really are a good person, and you're learning Torah for Torah's sake. So you really want to learn Torah. Consequently, in spite of the fact that you're not feeling the chochma, in spite of the fact that you may be frightening the chochma with your little guy ben Yeshus, atzmus nishmas nechlos bein sav baruch hu. The infinity of your neshama is connected to the infinity of godliness. The chochma of your neshama is connected to the indirectly controllable Ein Sof of chochma. And the neshama of your neshama is connected to the neshama of the Torah. You don't feel it, mazli chazi is your neshama feels it. So when learning Torah, there's godliness. But in addition to being in learning Torah godliness, there's also Ein Sof. But the Ein Sof may be hidden, and the Gevul may be revealed. So the Rebbe says, that's why you compare Torah to Mesiras Nefesh. That's why when a person has an urge, which is B'chol Meidecha, an infinite urge, you satisfy it through Torah. Because Torah is Ein Sof. This explains, whether you translate B'chol Nafshecha to go on Mesiras Nefesh, martyrdom, Mesiras Nefesh HaKiddush Hashem, or you translate B'chol Nafshecha, that what you feel in your heart should spill over to your whole person, they're related. Why? This is Ein Sof, and this is Ein Sof and Chochma. Additionally, the Shayach v'dibat abam take care of the B'chol Meidach. That learning Torah is the answer for an infinite urge. How can I satisfy an infinite urge for the Eibishter through Torah? The answer is because in Torah there is infinity in the form of Chochma. The idea of martyrdom, Mesiras Nefesh HaKiddush Hashem, which comes from the uncontrollable infinity of the neshama. As well as when he learns Torah, which gives him access not just to Ein Neshama, but also to Chochma, which is Ein Sof. Miskalas Nishmasav Ein Sei Baruch Hu. Both of these things connect you not just to godliness, but to the infinity of godliness. Through learning Torah, you can satisfy the Neshama's infinite urges. So this is a shiur on Chochma. What is Chochma? How godliness, which is infinite, is indirectly available to a person and even indirectly controllable.